Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. I am Gary Sutton, and great to have you with us this morning here on WSBA. Remember, you can call in anytime. 1-800-357-0910. Also go to Facebook.com/910WSBA, where you will find daily pieces that we put up there from the show that you can go back and kind of revisit, copy if you want to. We have, Randy Edsall from yesterday, the head coach of the University of Maryland, who's also a local guy from Glen Rock, talking about paying athletes and what he thought about that, how we take care of athletes today in the collegiate sphere. We also had Joe Schnetzka up yesterday on Obamacare, and he's an insurance guy who took us inside some of those things. And today, Dr. Walter E. Williams, who sits in every now and then for Rush Limbaugh, who is a columnist and I think one of the most common sense guys in the country. The Walter Williams interview is up today on Facebook.com/910WSBA. So it's all there for you. We have a lot of ways to get to each other, at Gary G. Sutton on Twitter. And you could also email me at gary.sutton@cumulus.com. We'll get to you some way, shape, or form here on the show. With us this morning is a guy I have a lot of respect for. He is the editor of kind of the Bible of our business. It's called Talkers Magazine, and we're talking about Michael Harrison, who joins us here this morning on the Gary Sutton Show. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. How you doing?
I am doing well. Since last I talked to you, I changed over this week to a new time, and I may interrupt our conversation every now and then by a call or two, so I hope you'll bear with me, but because we kind of are talkers. But great to have you on this morning. Thanks so much for joining me.
How's this affecting your lifestyle? Are you able to sleep later?
I'm sleeping longer. I'm sleeping longer. You know, when you get up at 4 in the morning, it's a lot different than getting up now at like 6:30 or 6:45. And so, yeah, life's a little different now, but I'm enjoying it. And back to what was my old dig for 8 years. But I certainly enjoyed morning drive for the 6 that I was there, 6+, and looking forward to this. You know, I want to talk to you. You are, without a doubt, kind of our guru here around the country in terms of talk radio. And where is talk radio in the country today? What, you know, you put the barometer out there, so to speak, and you measure. What does talk radio do for people out there from your particular perspective?
Well, certainly for the people in the radio industry, it's the most listened to format in radio. So no matter what you hear about talk radio being controversial, having problems with advertising agencies, being politically biased, fading in terms of the buzz, all of the negative things you hear about talk radio are primarily due to two things. One, radio in general is having problems, as is all traditional media from the 20th century because of these changing times and the economy. And it's not specifically talk radio. And because talk radio is so politically charged, it's caught in the crossfire of the dirty politics that we live with in America and the world. And anytime there's ever a bump in the road or something goes wrong, oh, conservative talk radio is dead. Oh, liberal talk radio is dead.
Right.
So the answer to your question is talk radio is alive, it's well, it's big, it's vital, its personalities are the only famous stars radio really has to offer from any formats for the most part. And it's going through a transition right now where it's readjusting itself to deal with the amazing changes that are in society, including generational ones. The millennials are coming of age. People that are approximately 28 years old, 30-year-old people are now coming into that age where they're interested in the news, they're interested in the economy, they're interested in public policy. So you're seeing a few adjustments happen, but by and large, it's here to stay.
You know, it's interesting, Michael, that I can remember one call I got probably about 15 years ago. And it stands out as the one call I remember. And a person called and they said, you know, I used to think I was the only person that thought like I do. But I listened one day and I realized there's other people that think like me. And now I can talk with other people about my ideas. Now, that could be left or right or whatever. I don't even recall what it was exactly on. But I said, you know, it's kind of an interesting look at it, that people come here. It's an unvarnished way of getting information out there and thoughts to consider. I always tell people, I'm not trying to change your mind or anything. I want to challenge you and I want to be challenged. And I want us both to walk away and be thinking about, you know, the issues that are out there in the day that you mentioned a moment ago. But I want you to know that there's a place you can go and you can do that. And I want to do it in a civil way where if we can walk away at the end, we can both be ready to come back and talk again sometime or debate or converse. But I want us to be considering other things other than just our own particular view. Is that too idealistic?
Yeah, well, you bring up an interesting point, and that is that talk radio creates affirmation and confirmation for people. It reaffirms that they are not alone and that there are other like-minded people. Thus, it galvanizes them, and it creates movements. And movements are important for democracy to exist. If everybody just sits there isolated and thinks that they're the only ones thinking about something, there's no way to get anything done in this country. So it creates affirmation, confirmation, and a sense of community, which is wired deeply into our DNA as a species. We have to be part of some kind of community. And you know something, Gary, it's not just political news talk radio. Look at sports talk radio. It creates tremendous community. And this is something that people in our industry should learn, is that this could be true for anything. Any subject that people have a common interest in, talk radio provides that sense of connectedness and community that is very good for the subject as a school of thought within the bigger patchwork of the human condition. It's a great aspect of what we do.
You mentioned something a moment ago about the idea that it can be branded right or left, conservative, liberal, whatever you want to throw around. And I know our station gets hit with the right-leaning thing because of where we are and how we live and so forth. And I always kind of rail at that, hopefully not defensively. But the idea is that I think talk radio caught the interest of a lot of people because maybe they felt that the traditional way news was given to them in somewhat of a biased way eventually, or it came through a conduit. And then whatever that person kind of saw the news being came out the other side. And so it kind of got started as, well, all right, now we're hearing directly from those people instead of just hearing from that one person reporting it at 6 and 11 at night. Do you see it that way? I mean, is there more to it than that?
There's always more to it than that, but
I gave you an easy volleyball to spike there.
We don't have time to do a theoretical college course in media and sociology.
Got it.
But the fact is, yes, the conservative movement in America has been well served by the existence of talk radio because there wasn't a mass medium out there for many, many years in our culture that specifically targeted card-carrying conservatives. If anything, they were marginalized and even mocked by the mainstream media. I would personally not go so far as to say the mainstream media was liberal and biased to conservatives. I would say the mainstream media was moderate and looked at conservatives as being radical. They were marginalized because conservatives are a special breed, and they are more unified in their political perspective of the nation as a whole than that which we call liberal, which really is spread out over a wide spectrum of thought. So I see it as conservative and non-conservative, as opposed to conservative and liberal. And thus there has been a service paid to the conservative community, which has now spread beyond talk radio. We have conservative programs on cable news talk television. We have the rise of conservative blogs and websites, and we have a lot of conservative publications out there today. So I think talk radio has been very good to the bigger marketplace of ideas, and conservatives have benefited from it.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because you've hit something interesting. So we look out there and we say, okay, as I remember President Clinton talking about it, other presidents spoke about, should we get away from the idea of having talk radio be able to express an opinion if they don't have the other opinion over there, the whole neutrality thing. So talk radio became very big. Obviously, Rush Limbaugh may be the biggest in the country, and then after that we have others who are also big. But we also have liberal talk radio out there, and that's been out there for a while too. However, back in the 1990s, I guess it was, we saw the beginning of Air America, and that didn't last for very long. It seemed to be kind of an anti-conservative kind of thing. It may not have always presented itself that way, but that was kind of the impetus from which it came. We see MSNBC. We're talking about talk shows there, who seem to be more anti to what talk radio is or programming is on Fox.
Let me jump in. One of the, they sort of frittered away the opportunity. Air America and MSNBC are, for the most part, anti-conservative media.
Well, and that's my point. It shouldn't be anti. It should be pro something.
Well, exactly, and that's a mistake they've made. And I roll my eyes when I watch people on MSNBC and Fox taking shots at each other.
Yeah.
Because the country has bigger issues to deal with.
We do.
Than two petty commercial entertainment companies pandering so much to their own egos and to the choir that they forgot that it isn't about them. It's about the bigger issues. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's very good broadcasting on either part. So, that's one of the things that they did wrong. But I think more importantly, you cannot create liberal media the same way you create conservative media because, as I said earlier, the conservatives are a more targetable niche. Ideologically, sociologically, demographically, in all of the areas that make sense to broadcasting, to the radio business, the conservative part of America is a more targetable and doable niche than liberals. Liberals don't make for a cohesive target per different cultural interests, and people don't walk around going, I'm a card-carrying liberal, the way people walk around saying I'm a card-carrying conservative. Mm-hmm. And thus it doesn't make for a good radio target. It's a harder target to get. It can be gotten, and there are some talented people.
Sure.
And because our industry is so hung up on what's called stationality, where now it's not just enough that you're news talk and that you have debate and you have different points of view and you have different kinds of hosts, now you have to be defined by what political ideology you have. It's made it hard for those very talented liberal hosts out there who are good and have audiences to find a station to be on because there are not enough of them to make a whole format. And that's been a problem too. So it's more the nature of the radio business that has stood in the way of this so-called right versus left breakdown than it has anything to do with the political breakdown of the country. I also want to point out something else that goes back to what you said about these two sides beating each other up, we're taking shots at other media as opposed to the real issues, is it's all under the control of the advertising industry. Madison Avenue controls this. And the liberals are really preaching to the same audience that the conservatives are, and that is an audience that the advertising agencies can relate to. Affluent, active, the kind of people you see depicted on the commercials when you're watching television. One would think watching commercials on TV, which are the big-time advertising industry representations, that everybody in America is young, happy, affluent, making money.
Right.
I mean, we see commercials at Christmas. Give your kid a Lexus.
Yeah.
I just saw a commercial. Give your high school graduate a Mercedes-Benz. What is that about? If there was radio under the guise of liberalism that really did a service to the poor people of this country, to the alienated, to the disenfranchised, to the single working mothers, to the people who have drug addiction, to the people that are down on their luck, to the homeless, to the people that the Madison Avenue crowd doesn't want, they would get the 50% of the country that votes the Democratic ticket.
Yeah, if it were relatable. You're right. I find a lot of commercials, I'm sitting there going, really? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what they're even talking about. And I don't feel alienated or disenfranchised, but yet it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Let me ask you this question. Does right-left radio dumb down Americans in terms of really thinking about the issues? Do they tend to go to sides too easily instead of thinking about the issues themselves?
I don't know if it dumbs it down as much as it doesn't fulfill its potential to rise it up. I'm glad they're talking about the issues because the worse than the way they do it now would be if we didn't hear politics discussed.
Yeah.
So I'm happy the issues are talked about. When people used to say to me, boy, you really get dumb callers on your show, I would say to them, if you think the call is to talk radio are dumb, you should listen to the callers to the request lines on the music station. And then you'll really be an eye-opener. So I don't want to say it dumbs it down. What I want to say is it doesn't rise it up to the level it could and still be maybe even more so commercially viable. I think there's a huge audience out there in America to be tapped that is honest, credible, hardworking, intelligent, well-meaning, and just darn smart. And I think they've tuned out.
And here's what I want to do, Michael. When we come back for our last little 5-minute segment here, I want to ask you how we get them. Because we're trying to, and I want to see if our way is the right way or if there's hope for us. WSBA time is 11:52. I'm Gary Sutton. This is the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA, and glad to be with you. Also glad to welcome back the editor of Talkers Magazine, Michael Harrison. Michael, call me naive when I say this, but I think there is too much, and I've coined the word sideism in this country. We've taken a side, no matter if it's right, left, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, whatever it might be. But we try, and we're trying on our show to chase down, I think, truth. I think that's intriguing for people who don't necessarily want to take a side. And I often tell people, when you make your decisions in your household every day, you don't think about right or left. You think about, geez, how do I solve the problem? And I think there is a part of talk radio that we need to really start to search for. But in order to do that, I think we have to kind of lay down our sides. And I'm not sure we can do that. But I'm still kind of out there, Don Quixote chasing the windmill, I guess. Your thoughts?
No, you're not. You answered the question that I was formulating an answer to when you tipped me to where you were going, and you just said it. We are now in a culture in this country where we seek victory and not truth.
Yes.
We seek victory. Let's find something that makes our side look good. Let's ignore the other side's victory. Let's ignore the other side's truth. Let's ignore this new information that might prove that our guy is a loser. Let's be a fan of this team, even though the guy on the team is a wife beater and a murderer.
Right.
Let's be a fan of it as long as he's on our team. Of course, if he's on the other team, let's make a big deal about how they're cheaters and they're awful and they're thugs. If we can get past this present penchant we have for seeking victory as opposed to seeking truth, we will all be better off and we'll do more business. Second is, be as intelligent as possible. That doesn't mean boring, but don't underestimate the intelligence of the American public and don't underestimate the intelligence of young people. Media for young people that are smart will do well. The stereotype of young people being dumb is only a limited view of the potential in bringing in young people into this kind of radio and this kind of broadcasting.
The other part, too, is that no longer are we on the 6-11 kind of thing. No longer are we just on the 3 hours, but, you know, the younger generation is looking every moment for information, whether you think it's good information, but a lot of them are going through and they're finding things and they're looking it down. So I think we have to be adaptable. But coming back to kind of accentuate your point, I do think that talk radio needs to start to search for authenticity. And I think people, and when you look at the polls and how we feel about our institutions in our country today, it seems like we got a lot of work to do in that regard on getting the people kind of back in charge again, at least on knowing what they've got in front of them and helping them or hurting them.
I'll conclude my points by saying this, and again, it's an echo of what you're saying. I think we are living in one of the most unauthentic times that I can remember in my rather long life.
Couldn't agree with you more, Michael.
And it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I feel that all the institutions that we grew up having faith in are out to get us. I think that you're being ripped off by your bank. You're being ripped off by your stockbroker. You go to the restaurant, they're hustling you to eat dessert before you even have your entree. You go to the hotel and the lights are low so they can save electricity. Everything is a ripoff today. The disingenuousness of messages and promotions and the culture is absolutely frightening. And I think that we need to reevaluate authenticity and our values. I think the American public craves it, and it's not being served to them in their media or in any of their present business or cultural institutions by and large.
And I think we try to make that effort. We fail sometimes. Listen, we all have frailties, but I think if you stay focused on what is authentic, what's the real truth, we may not always find the truth, but we're going to at least be on that path trying to get there. I think you probably have a pretty good chance of coming through. And again, it's got to be something where it's interesting. You know, someone said the other day about Christie. They said, "Oh, well, Christie's not getting as much coverage as, or is getting more coverage than Obama did." And I said, "Well, that's a given." But I said, "Here's the question: don't just say Christie's my guy, therefore because he said he didn't do something." I said, "Here's another part to the whole thing. When you're the governor of the state of New Jersey or any state, if you see 4 lanes shut down on the busiest bridge in the world, wouldn't that concern you if it was down for 4 days or 3 lanes cut down for 4 days? I said, wouldn't that concern you? I said, that concerns me then as a citizen. I think we have to take it to another level instead of just saying your guy and my guy.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And, stick with that because your listeners will appreciate it. And you're a better human being. I don't know whether or not one man or a conversation like this could have any impact, but, at least we're doing our part.
Well,
I run my operation that way. I came up and I told you the truth. I answered your questions as truthfully as possible. I'm not selling anything. And I probably made a few enemies in our industry by saying what I'm saying, but I can't possibly go out there without speaking what I see to be the truth.
It's the reason I like to talk to you, Michael, because we've never had a problem doing that, going back and forth and getting the honest answers. And that's really what we're looking for here in Talk Radio. I hope, Michael, I look forward to our next time again very, very soon. And it's always an honor and a pleasure having you aboard.
Feeling is mutual. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Michael Harrison, editor of Talkers Magazine, with us here on the Gary Sutton Show.